This episode of Around the Oval is brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. Hey, Ohio State fans, Alex Gleitman here, back with another edition of Around the Oval, brought to you by Todd Pennington with Revolution Mortgage. The NFL draft just ended this past weekend. 10 Buckeyes were selected. A number of other Buckeyes signed as free agents with teams immediately following the draft. And one of those guys is with us today, an Ohio State punter, Drue Chrisman. Drue's a kid who I remember covering his recruitment about, 4 or 5 years ago now at this point, and it's crazy. Time just flies. He had a heck of a career at Ohio State and now has signed with the Cincinnati Bengals as a free agent. Drue, congratulations first and foremost, and thanks for joining the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. Yeah, no, high school feels like a lifetime ago. That's
well, you have 4 Big Ten rings, I guess. What, like 3 wins over the team up north, and you have 4. That's right. That's the first year too, and you have a wife now. So a lot's happened in like 5 years. It's been pretty crazy, but it seems like it's been an awesome ride for you.
No, yeah, it's been great. Ohio State's been great to me. I really couldn't have pictured it going any better. Yeah, I mean, we won a lot, and there's a lot of good memories that will last a lifetime.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're not going to, unlike Ben Hartsock on the Big Ten show this week that I was listening to, we're not going to talk about knockers on your in-laws' doors or anything like that. But we are going to talk about football and what's going on with you. So, I mentioned, obviously, you got signed by the Bengals. It's your hometown team, the team you grew up rooting for. You went to LaSalle High School in Cincinnati, and then off to Ohio State, up I-71, and then back down now with the Bengals. Just talk a little bit about how much it means to you to have, A, the opportunity to play in the NFL, but B, the opportunity to do so in your hometown.
Yeah, no, it's really come full circle. Making the choice to go to high school in Cincinnati at LaSalle, and then, stay in Ohio for college, and then now making another choice to stay, coming back down to Cincinnati for my professional career. Ohio's been very good to me, and no need for me to try to leave anytime soon. Especially, growing up, my dad and I have very fond memories going to Bengals games, heading into the jungle, screaming our heads off all day, Hoo Day. So, it's just a dream come true. I'm ecstatic about it. My family's very happy. Plus they get me to come home. My wife as well, since she was my neighbor growing up. So it's kind of a 2-for-1 there. Both the making my family and the in-laws happy that we'll be close to home these next couple of years. And I'm just going to take full advantage of this opportunity and hopefully have a very long career in Cincinnati.
Yeah, we're real happy for you. It was awesome to see that news. And, I know the draft process for a lot of these guys is pretty stressful. I mean, obviously I couldn't even imagine a guy like, Justin, just from everyone would love to be picked 11th in the NFL draft. But when you thought he was going to go maybe 2 or 3 a few months ago, that's had to have been stressful. Wyatt, I thought he dropped a little bit further than I thought he would have. And, there was a couple guys. Coop had to wait till round 7, but for you, I think the draft process is a little bit different. You and Blake, while it would have been nice to hear your name called, most of the players selected are not specialists, even though it was interesting to see long snappers selected this year. And obviously the Bengals also picked a kicker. I think it was in round 5 or so. But most specialists end up signing and kind of going the route that you end up going. So tell us a little bit about like what that process was like for you, like pre-draft, during the draft, and then kind of how, you ended up signing with Cincinnati.
Right. Yeah. There's certainly no guarantee that you'll get drafted at all. Really you're just kind of looking for a chance, good spot to go in and compete and try to earn the job. If you get drafted, that's great. But it's certainly not the quarterback position where if you're, if you're the 7th ranked quarterback going into that draft, you'll probably, wind up mid rounds or something like that. If you're the 7th ranked punter going into the draft, you might be you're selling cars, the next couple of weeks because you might not have a job. So yeah, even if you're one of the top couple of specialists coming out, that really just guarantees you a chance to compete. Doesn't necessarily mean you get drafted. And that was a reality that, I totally accepted going into it. And so we did our research before the draft even started. And it was actually after that 5th round pick, you mentioned the Bengals drafted Evan. Cincinnati's, been one of my favorite teams growing up. They were certainly on the short list of teams I wanted to wind up on. And I knew they weren't going to pick up a specialist in the same draft. So I was talking with Coach Simmons, special teams coordinator, and basically we just worked out a deal. If I didn't get drafted, I was going to be a Bengal after 259. So, and as soon as the draft ended, I was heading to Cincinnati. So that was pretty cool to at least have that in the back pocket. Know you're going to get a chance somewhere. But yeah, if my name would have been called, it's great. I'm glad there were a couple specialists this year. I'm a big for the brand guy. So anytime, spec gets picked up, I'm happy to see it. But yeah, 2 long snappers, more long snappers than kickers and punters this year. I don't know when the last time that's happened. So
yeah, it was pretty interesting from my perspective to see that, but, glad it worked out for you. Glad you're in Cincinnati. My big question now that you're a pro is like, does the bottle flipping continue? I mean, I think that that's an asset that the Bengals maybe have been missing the last few years. And I don't know, maybe that gives you a little bit of an edge.
Yeah, I actually, it was funny when Evan, the kicker, got drafted. There was a video he put out. I think it was like during quarantine or something. He was in their facility and he'd kicked it and spun the bottle cap off whenever that challenge was going on. I'm sure, I think I did something like that with a bottle flip or whatever. But people were just joking, like, if they draft Drue Chrisman too, the internet's going to go crazy because the amount of trick shots and ideas that they could come up with. Just what happens on a Bengal, and there's going to be some talented bottle flipping and kickers on the same team. So there might be something in the future. But as of right now, and really kind of just past year, I've been more focused on just my ball kicking, flipping the field, as I like to say it. So yes, then I might pick up in the future. But right now, I'm just working on having a job. So
no, I hear you, and I guess my question is, you're obviously planning to go and compete, win the job. We talked about it a little bit before we got on here. Kevin Huber's been there a long time, and they bring in guys every year to compete and push him and see, what have they kind of told you, or how do you see, this opportunity for you and kind of your odds on, staying in Cincinnati?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a specific odds. Kevin's been great. Kevin's been there for 12 years. I remember watching him growing up, even trying to mimic the things that he does. He's done it at an elite level for a long time. So, it's going to be great to go in there and compete with him, but not only learn from him how to, succeed in this kind of business for that long. There's definitely some things I'm going to be picking up from him. But they've just kind of told me, just the best man's going to win the job. Kevin's done a great job, but he's been there for a while. The pay scale, the longer you are, the more expensive you are. So that opens it up for, a cheap rookie to come in and compete and save some of that salary cap money. That's been, a big thing over teams' heads this past year. But at the end of the day, I just got to go in there and punt like I know how to do it. And, usually good things happen when I'm punting well. So that's my goal. And not trying to worry too much about the competition, kind of do what I do best. So,
yeah, it's interesting because Ohio State's put a bunch of punters into the NFL. Obviously, Cameron Johnston has, you're the guy who preceded you has done a pretty good job, for someone in Philadelphia now with Houston, and guys like Andy Groom and BJ Sander and Tom Tupa. In the past, AJ Trapasso, they've all kind of taken the same route and have found success. So I guess my question to you is, how did your time at Ohio State, prepare you to, in your particular role, for this next level and this next step in your career?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I remember a conversation I had with Coach Wilson, who actually recruited me when he was at Indiana. And when he got to Ohio State, he pulled me aside one day. He's like, why any good punter comes to Ohio State? They don't punt, which is very true. We certainly did the best and did a great job of keeping me off the field for, the 4 years that I started. Along with Cameron, he wasn't putting up, crazy amount of punts in the game, but it's the production that happens when you're on the field is what really matters when it comes down to it. And you're certainly going to have the exposure you need at Ohio State. And I think that's the biggest thing that, Ohio State's provided me, is just that platform to, really showcase my skills at a high level. I mean, we played in the national championship this past year. That was a big thing when I committed to Ohio State, was after watching that 2014, 2015 national championship run. I was like, I want to play for a team that I'm going to have. It's a winning team. It's a winning culture, and I'm going to be able to showcase my skills at the highest level. And that's certainly been, I'm certainly been allowed to do that after winning, 4 Big Ten championships and playing in 2 semifinals. So college playoffs. So that's something that, is unique to Ohio State, and gives us the opportunity to do that on a national scale.
Yeah, definitely. And, you mentioned, obviously playing at a high level allowed a lot of these other guys to get the opportunity to be drafted this past weekend. 10 of your teammates, and then a few others. Justin signed with San Francisco, Tough signed with Minnesota. I haven't Jake signed with Detroit. I don't know if Blake signed yet. I haven't seen anything. What's that?
He went to the Titans, Tennessee.
He went to Tennessee. So seems like everyone's at least found a home. I mean, were you during the draft? Were you following that stuff closely, where your guys were getting picked, and what are your thoughts on I guess how everyone did and where they kind of landed?
Oh, certainly, yeah. I mean, it's an every year celebration. It seems like for Ohio State fans, because most of the time we have a lot of Buckeyes in the draft, and even more so in the first round. I know Justin was our only first rounder this year, but years past, you certainly have, a few guys there, and you can always root for them. So yeah, I know some guys might have, slid, what we would have thought, of them, especially guys like, this is kind of the guys I've spent with the last 4 or 5 years. So, have really strong, relationships with them, and I know what they can do. And it is kind of, tough to see when they do fall later in the rounds, but going back onto what Ohio State prepares you, all these guys really need a shot, just because of that Buckeye mentality that we have to go in there, put our nose down and just grind. I'm sure Sean Wade, that's a guy, perfect example, is going to have a chip on his shoulder, and he's going to work even harder than ever to prove all these people wrong. So I know that some guys might not have liked where they wound up, and some guys probably got drafted earlier than I thought. But I know everybody's going to have a great career just because of how Ohio State built us and prepared us for this moment. So,
yeah, it's going to be fun to watch. I was, as you mentioned, I thought some guys went a little earlier than maybe I thought they would have. Some guys went a little bit later, but Ohio State guys have proved, Corey Linsley was a 6th-round pick or something like that, and now he's the highest paid center in the league. Andrew Norwell was undrafted at one point, was the highest paid guard in the league. And there's a few other guys like that have kind of look at Terry. I mean, Terry is a star at receiver, and he was a 3rd-round pick, and that was probably only because he was really good at special teams too. So, I agree. I think Ohio State prepares you and surprises you. One question I did want to ask, because it wasn't surprising to me. I know they can't pick every Buckeye. Coach Meyer being at the Jags now, he took Luke, which was cool for Luke, but no other Buckeyes at the moment. I know they signed Carlos Hyde. Was that an opportunity you were looking at, reuniting with Coach Meyer a little bit, or is that not really a conversation you guys had?
No, it would have been great. I would have loved to go down to Jacksonville, Coach Meyer. He was actually at Pro Day, and I was able to talk to him a little bit, but they're pretty good. They're pretty set at the punter position. They drafted a guy before he was there, obviously, and just a few years ago, and he's done a good job for them. So, they're not really looking to bring in a punter this year. But yeah, I was super pumped for Luke. That was a guy who I thought might have gone a little earlier than I thought. And I think that has something to do with the relationship he had with Coach Meyer. Coach Meyer was able to see behind all these, Mel Kiper draft prediction and everything, because he knows these guys personally. He's recruited them, and he knows their family, he knows their work ethic. So I'm sure, yeah, you might have only seen one Buckeye drafted by Jacksonville this year, but, Coach Meyer knows what, Coach Day's doing here at Ohio State, and I'm sure the Buckeye pipeline will certainly increase in the years to come.
Yeah, obviously the communication between Coach Meyer, Coach Day is pretty strong, and so he's going to get the reel on what's going on. And then on top of that, he recruited still a lot of these guys. So to your point, I mean, if any team's going to take a guy maybe a little bit earlier because they just know that much about the guy, it's Jacksonville. And I thought, I was hopeful Luke would get drafted, but I thought it was a realistic possibility he may not get taken. Not, I think he's a guy who could have, just like Nick Vannett and other guys at Ohio State at tight end position who haven't really caught a ton of passes. I thought he's a guy who can, from his blocking ability and just being a locker room guy, could stick around for a while. But I was glad to see, I saw Coach Meyer say something in his press conference, basically like he like pounded the table for Luke Farrell because he wanted another tight end and he just knew what he can bring every single day. So, that kind of, one more question on Coach Meyer I wanted to ask was, I'm not surprised. I guess he came back to coaching. I think some people are maybe surprised it's the NFL, and just because of, I guess, the offense maybe he's run in the past has been a little bit more suited to college, and I don't know, just his style. Like, you can't walk into an NFL locker room and use some of the same tactics you do in college. They'll kind of tell you to to screw off. So, I know Coach Meyer's a good coach and he's going to adapt to what he needs to do. But what was your thoughts on him kind of going to the NFL, and how do you think he's going to do down in Jacksonville?
I mean, I think Coach Meyer is good for the game of football. Anywhere he goes, he wins. And I'm sure it's going to be the same story in Jacksonville. So I'm excited to see what he does there. I was kind of being selfish when he did retire, and was thinking like, hey, I'm Coach Meyer's last ever punter. And, I feel like, especially at that position, that's kind of his baby, is the punt. And that was after the 2018 season. I was kind of like, hey, we had a pretty good punt team. This is a good taste to leave in his mouth as far as me as a punter. But, maybe it might happen in the future. I don't know how the cards are going to play. But no, I'm happy to see him back. And, he seems happy, and he's going to do a great job in the NFL, just like I think he's done at any level. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting to watch because the guy doesn't like losing football games. And in the NFL, if you lose 6 games a year, it's a good season. You're 10-6
Right.
or now with the 17-game season, 11-6, 10-7. You might make who knows, 9-8, you make the playoffs, maybe. I'm curious to see how a guy like that deals with it. Hopefully his mindset going in is, I understand I'm going to lose football games, because one game at Ohio State and it was like the end of the, better than anyone in being in that locker room. It was probably not fun to be around him for a few days after a loss. So that's going to be the one interesting thing to me is how does he deal with that? And, he's got a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who hasn't lost a high school or college regular season game. So both of them are going to have to get used to losing a couple, but staying on coaching, I thought Ohio State, and this is like second to last thing, I won't keep you too much longer, but Ohio State made some interesting changes this offseason. Obviously, Coach Meyer, Coach Day have both been big on special teams, and you've had guys like Coach Barnes and, some of the quality control guys and things like that helping out with special teams. But they made a move this year, moving Coach Combs to defensive coordinator, no position title. Coach Barnes, just straight DBs, and they promoted Parker Fleming to be the special teams coordinator. I guess first, what are your thoughts on that hire of Parker Fleming, and then also having a dedicated special teams coach?
No, I love Parker. I think this position has been long overdue for him. As far as football IQ, he's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. He is 3 steps ahead of most people, and I think what was that, back in 2019, or no, was that 2018 when we blocked the team up north punt? I know that he had set that scheme. Yeah, whenever that was, he's set that scheme up, and he's done a great job to influence the the special teams unit, and had kept it at a high level, ever since Coach Meyer, and even while he was there. He back and forth from Ohio State throughout the years, and I love the hire. I like Coach Fleming. I think he's going to do a great job. And as far as a specialist, they really have drawn towards him. And the unit's going to look a little different this year as far as me and Blake gone. But the production I think is only going to enhance just because of who they got in the driver's seat now with Parker Fleming. I'm sure Coach Barnes is going to have his nose in special teams as well. Maybe Combs, once they're in that position, they just kind of have that in their mind, and they can always bounce ideas off of each other. But I think with Coach Fleming on the reins, you're gonna see some fun and very productive things coming out of the special teams unit this year and years to come. So
Yeah, I've already been hearing some things that they've been call it a little bit more aggressive and creative in some of the things that they're going to be doing on all of the units within special teams. So excited to see what that looks like. And, I think, whoever wins the punter job, that's going to be an interesting thing to follow. I think an underrated thing people are not thinking about. Jake, I think, has a pretty good hold on the kicker job. I thought he did a nice job when he was called upon last year. So definitely something to watch, and good to hear you give the Parker Fleming stamp of approval. I think a lot of people don't know much about him. And, I think everyone I've spoken to just speaks super highly of the guy. So, it will be an interesting year to see how that move pays off. And, last thing I'll talk about now that your careers at Ohio State is over, just reflect a little bit. What's your like favorite Ohio State moment? And what's the moment you would like to maybe have back?
Well, I'd probably be in trouble if I didn't say the spring game proposal. That's got to be up there. I'm going to say that's number one. Just
How about we'll do a 1 and 1A, a football one, and then obviously, I mean, the spring game proposal was great, but.
No, yeah, it was great, but that's my answer to everything. As far as like strictly football answer, the was that 2018 whiteout. That game was my favorite game going into there, and it was blistering loud. You couldn't even hear, and then by the end of it, you could hear a pin drop. And unfortunately, we didn't get to experience the whiteout this year, but we experienced it in full effect in 2018. And that was a very special moment, and that's something I'll remember forever as far as Ohio State football. And then a moment I wish I could have back. As much as I love I think it was 2018 as well, my Michigan State game where I put a few inside the 5-yard line. People seldom remember my first punt of the game. It is still a record to this day. That I don't think any athletes, or especially punter, wants to own as the shortest punt in Ohio State history, a whopping 4 yards. But maybe that adds to the story of that game of being able to overcome that little blunder I had, maybe a little lack of concentration. But yeah, that's certainly something that at least the stat book probably wishes it had back.
Yeah, if you ever have to go on a real interview, not a job interview, and they ask you the question, name one time you faced a challenge that you had to overcome. I mean, that's a great answer.
Pull up that film right there. Yeah.
Yeah. Just be like, just throw up YouTube and 2018 Michigan State highlights. No, that's awesome, Drue. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for joining us. We're really happy for you. Congratulations on joining the Bengals, and we wish you a long and healthy and successful NFL career.
I appreciate it, Alex. Thanks for having me on.
This episode of Around the Oval was brought to you by Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. If you've been thinking about refinancing or buying a house, check out our sponsor, Todd Pennington with Renovation Mortgage. They offer low rates for refinancing and home purchase loans, including first-time home buyer programs, down payment assistance, and cash-out home equity loans. Check out revolutionmortgage.com/tpennington.